I am very worried about the future of abortion rights in Michigan.
I'm here to just take your vitals.
As a nurse who not only works in abortion care, but who also works as a labor and delivery nurse, it is horrifying to me to have legislators sit here and make life-changing decisions that impact our health. And I just do not feel like it's appropriate that legislators are able to make decisions about people's reproductive health care. That is something that should be between that person and their doctor. Abortion does not have to be a complicated subject. Abortion is a medical term. It means a pregnancy that has ended. Abortions happen spontaneously. Abortions happen electively.
The Supreme Court's ruling in Dobbs v. Jackson, which eliminated the federal constitutional right to an abortion, set off a state-by-state battle over reproductive rights. Michigan has a 1931 law in place that, if enforced, makes it a felony to perform an abortion, even in cases of rape or incest. Anti-abortion activists and lawmakers in the state are currently fighting for the ability to enforce the law. But Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer and her administration have been successful in their attempts to prevent the law from enforcement. Scottsdale Women's Center in Detroit is just one of many abortion providers in the state that have been on edge due to their state's precarious protections on abortion. The upcoming governor's race between Governor Whitmer and her GOP challenger Tudor Dixon will very likely determine Scottsdale's ability to provide safe and legal abortions to Michigan residents, as well as patients from Ohio, Texas, Louisiana, and elsewhere who have crossed state lines in growing numbers following the Dobbs ruling.
Do you have some tea, some crackers, anything like that? Water?
Yeah.
I'll grab you some water. Just gonna stick this on your finger as well, okay? And you go right here. And then you're gonna chill out for about half an hour. And then just let me know if you need anything. I'll grab you that water too.
Okay. Thank you so much.
The staff here at Scottsdale is very intentional with making sure patients feel comfortable. For one, we like to smile at our patients. Of course, we're wearing masks, so they don't always get to see our smiles, but hopefully they see it in our eyes. We want them to be open with us and to feel like they can trust us. We do not care either way what you decide to do. We are here to support whatever that decision is. I actually was interested in working here after I had my own abortion experience. It wasn't done here, but after my own abortion experience, I was like, wow, it seems like amazing work that I want to do. I started working here as a medical assistant, so before I even became a registered nurse. And I was working here throughout my time in nursing school, and it was a great time for me going through that professional development and in a space where I was really comfortable. Being an abortion nurse as well as a labor and delivery nurse, I am definitely seeing the full spectrum of the care. And because I serve patients in this setting, as well as the hospital I work at, they're in the exact same neighborhood pretty much. So the patient population is exactly the same. So I will see the same patients. I'll see patients who I helped deliver at the hospital who maybe got pregnant again later, comes here to have an abortion because they're not ready to have another baby. I believe wholeheartedly in reproductive justice, which is the right to have a baby, the right to not have a baby, and the right to raise your baby in a sustainable community. Right here under your tongue. Everything looks really well. This work is so important. Most of the patients who leave here feel incredibly relieved, as I did when I had my abortion years ago. I felt relief, like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders. It is like an experience that is unlike any other. And I think some misconceptions is that the community may feel like this work is negative or it has some type of dark cloud over it, when really it is the exact opposite. It is like a ray of sun. After the Dobbs decision, it became even more imperative that I am here for patients, that I'm listening to them, that I'm making sure that their needs are being met. We have patients who are traveling from far away. I mean, recently I've had days where most of the patients I've served are from Ohio. We're seeing sometimes more patients from Ohio than we are Michigan. We're having patients come from Texas, from Louisiana. I had a patient, so it's like we're seeing patients from all over the country at this time.
Out of state, I feel like there's been some days where I've seen almost like probably 75% being from Ohio. Overall, we've seen like an increase of about like 25% in patient load. It's definitely been a pretty heavy workload, working a lot alongside some of the funding options we have for patients, seeing a lot more patients per day, so it keeps our days going a lot longer than usual, and making sure we're staying stocked up on everything because of the high influx of patients.
The scarcity of care is definitely creating a gratitude for our patients. When they come in the door, they feel very relieved that they have a place to go to help them.
So there's the local anesthesia and the moderate sedation. The local anesthesia, we give this to all of our surgical patients. Have you ever heard of lidocaine?
Yes.
Alright, so that's what we're going to use to numb you. The moderate sedation, I also like to call it the twilight medication. It does 3 things for you. It's a sedative, it's a pain med, and it's also an anxiety medication.
A lot of our patients never thought in their lifetime that they'd be going through this uncertainty, that they would think that for a minute they wouldn't be able to go somewhere and have a safe legal abortion. They're really comfortable in here. I love the sign at the end. It says empower, endure, and be free. At the end of the day, what we want is for all of our patients to feel relieved when they leave out of this building. And since this is the last stop, it's like, what better words to show them, especially the be free. You're free. Go live your life and be happy. And that's really what we want for our patients.
Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you!
I am very worried about the future of abortion rights in Michigan. Right now, we are lucky to have a governor and an attorney general who is on our side and who wants to protect us. However, we're in the middle of an election season, and we don't know, honestly, what the future holds. The GOP opponent who is running against Governor Whitmer, she has said that she is against abortion in all cases. And that's horrifying to me. It's very unnerving. And I worry about the people in our state and what is to come. I really believe that nobody is truly free. Nobody has freedom if they cannot even control their own reproductive health. So I am very worried and concerned about not just losing that right, but what does that mean going forward? What other rights would they feel like they could take away from me? We do not need politicians to intervene in something that should be kept between a patient and their doctor. It has nothing to do with anyone else. It's nobody else's business. And what we have now is we have politicians deciding the fate of patients, which is completely unacceptable. And unfortunately, I don't really see an end to this in the next few months. Hopefully, with the next election, we can get some type of solid security in our state.
Make no mistake, whether by virtue of a candidate or a specific ballot measure, abortion access and reproductive care will be on the ballot this November. Visit vote.org for voter registration and polling information. Make your mark by ensuring your voice is heard. The time is now.
When I'm at the Capitol and speaking to senators, representatives, I don't think that I'm going to change any of their minds. That's not what I'm there for. I'm there to put a face to the issue. I'm there to be a trans young person very publicly.
The sheer amount of bills designed specifically to hurt me and my trans siblings means that I do not get to rest. We are so tired of constantly being humiliated, excluded, and treated as a monolithic other to be feared.
Stop hurting us, like leave us alone. We are not doing anything to you, and we don't want to. We just want to exist. You're actively hurting us. You may not realize it, you may think that you're doing good, but you are harming so many people, and you need to know that. You can't hide behind the pretense of protecting children forever, because it's just not true. And the world is going to realize that.
Recently, anti-LGBTQ+ legislation focused on transgender youth were introduced by state legislators nationwide. These bills target an array of issues, from sports bans to outlawing gender-affirming healthcare. Following the defeat of over a dozen anti-trans bills in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton ordered the Department of Family and Protective Services to investigate parents of trans kids under claims of child abuse. Trans youth, their families, and allies are fighting back. Inigo Giles is a non-binary student and activist at the University of Texas at Austin. They began their public advocacy during the 2021 legislative session. Giles was motivated to speak out on behalf of trans friends and youth who were too afraid or vulnerable to advocate for themselves. Giles was inspired by their parents, Mandy and Neil, who are allies and fellow activists. The Giles are one of many Texas families speaking out and advocating for trans youth rights. Their fight is long and challenging, but they are showing no signs of faltering.
I guess I got involved in advocacy for trans rights and specifically trans kids' rights, first and foremost because of our twins who are both non-binary. It was important for me that they know that I and we support them in every way. By trade, I'm in education, I'm a lawyer. The proponents of these bills, they were not based in the law.
It's exhausting to keep fighting these all the time. It's terrifying knowing that our friends could be accused as child abusers, or that these laws can affect them in very real and very personal ways. Knowing that the top in power just don't care about our kids and don't see them as citizens who are deserving of full rights, which is just really hurtful.
Trans children just want to fit in, and for many of them, sports is one of the only places they feel like they can belong. Sports is a safe place for children to deal with their social and mental health, and taking that away would deeply negatively impact the health and safety of so many of them. Do not take this from them. The public opinion is overwhelmingly against these anti-trans bills.
I think trans kids are being targeted specifically because it's an easy issue to rally around for uber conservatives, because it's easy to make it seem like it's a different thing than it is by rallying around the cry of like, protect the children. Who's gonna think of the children? Like, that's always been a tactic. And it's easy to spin kind of what's happening into kind of fear-mongering and incorrect portrayals to make it seem like a big scary thing that people need to fix, when that's not the case at all.
It's soul crushing is what it is. And I can't even imagine being 7 years old and telling grown-ups, I'm a real person. Please leave me alone. Please treat me with respect. Please let me live my life the way I want to.
The DFPS here in Texas is basically what you would think of as Child Protective Services. I believe it was late February of this year, Abbott and Paxton released a directive basically saying that providing trans-affirming healthcare and basically doing anything that affirms trans kids could be considered child abuse. And so it acted as a directive and a permission for the Department of Family Service and Protective Services to start investigating families of trans kids as to whether they were abusing their children. This is a lot to handle for like 7-year-olds. They don't need to know about how much of the world hates that they exist. But this is what did it. This is what made them have to sit their kids down and explain and say, if people come to our door to ask about you, you need to tell them, no, I won't speak to you without my lawyer. They had to be taught how to lawyer up at age 7, which is so depressing. Lots of families who have had to leave the state for their and their children's safety. So many kids deal with so many mental health issues, crippling depression, debilitating anxiety because of their dysphoria. And having that alleviated creates that sense of gender euphoria that can save them from those dark places.
We should all wish to accept more transgender children instead of attending the funerals of dead ones. Thank you for your time.
It changed my life. I don't know where I would be if I hadn't been allowed to have that. I received a chest reduction when I was 17, actually 3 months away from turning 18, so just barely in the scope of Texas's nasty laws, if they had been passed at the time. And it was incredibly affirming for me. The first time I saw myself in the mirror, just wearing a normal t-shirt, I started crying because I was like, that's how I was meant to look. I finally feel at home in my body. I don't feel like there's a stranger in the mirror. There's just so much joy in knowing yourself and knowing yourself in such a true way.
If I had to share the most important thing I've learned about being a supporter and advocate for our trans kids, it's that they're the leaders. We have to follow their lead.
Support begins at home. Having that support of their parents and caregivers and family can really boost all kids, but in particular transgender and non-binary kids' mental health, help them be on a positive trajectory. And that includes things like believing your kids when they tell you who they are. I think having those pieces as the foundation, then everything else becomes a little bit easier. And then it becomes a little bit easier to advocate for your child.
Hi everybody, I'm Indigo. I use they, ze pronouns. I'm our Director of Communications, so if you see any really cute and funky and cool posts on the Instagram, that's me. Any graphics that you see, that's also me. And the newsletter is me. And I am a third-year psych major with a soon-to-be completed minor in Mandarin Chinese. And I'm a big nerd, so you can talk to me about anything nerdy and I'll love it.
I'm personally very optimistic about Beto. We need a rehaul of the whole system, basically, at its root. And starting from the top is a great place to do that. Especially a lot of young people don't realize how much power that they have to make that happen. But I'm gearing up for the next legislative session because I'm bracing for that to be just as bad as last time. And I'm gonna try and now mobilize a lot of people to get ready for that so that we can have even more people filling these seats. Even if we're not changing their minds, like we're making their day hard. Like if there's like 100 of us there to testify, they have to hear all of us. I've learned that I'm a very strong person. There's not a lot of people who can stand up in front of all of their state senators and tell them how wrong they are. It's really hard work. And I learned that I have even more love in my heart than I previously thought for the trans youth of Texas.
The fight for trans rights will continue as long as anti-LGBTQ+ politicians and groups try to deny them of their healthcare, dignity, and basic opportunities. By electing and supporting candidates who affirm their basic human rights, we can ensure that our fellow trans citizens are treated fairly and with respect from the government. Visit vote.org for voter registration and polling information. Make your mark by ensuring your voice is heard. The time is now.
So often youth are sidelined and forgotten because youth can't vote. And we are impacted by every policy decision, especially with climate change. I was so upset that generations before me hadn't done something to fight this issue, and starting in my early teen years, I realized there's no time left for us, and it's up to our generation to make this difference and make this impact.
Climate change has been a looming threat for decades, and despite efforts to address the problem, there is still a lot of work to be done. Young people across the country are taking matters into their own hands and fighting to hold legislators accountable. In February of this year, 13 Virginia residents, ranging in age from 10 to 19, sued their state in a case called Layla H. versus the Commonwealth of Virginia. The residents argue that by providing permits for fossil fuel infrastructure, historically and throughout the present day, the state has violated their constitutional rights and put their health at risk. On September 16th, the case was dismissed by Richmond Circuit Court Judge Clarence N. Jenkins. The plaintiffs plan to appeal the decision. Their attorney is concerned about the precedents the judge's ruling will have on other lawsuits holding government policy accountable. Claudia Sachs was one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuits. She feels it would be unsafe for her to bring children into the world in the future because they might experience the worst potential effects of the climate crisis. Though many of the plaintiffs in the case are too young to vote, they are finding other ways to help make the world a better, more livable place for future generations.
I think climate change has always been a feature of my life, and so many of my childhood memories are impacted by climate change and its increasing prevalence with every passing year and decade. I have so many memories of summers that used to be so pleasant and so nice becoming painfully hot, becoming dangerous, and winters over time becoming a lot less cold and a lot less snow and fewer snow days. And I felt so deeply helpless because I was so young, I couldn't vote, I couldn't do anything, and I had no control over where I lived or how I lived my life or the places I went because I was a child. Layla H. v. Commonwealth is a lawsuit brought by 13 plaintiffs, including me, represented by our Children's Trust. And we are alleging that the Commonwealth is violating our constitutional rights to life, liberty, and property by permitting fossil fuel infrastructure. Under the public trust doctrine, Virginia cannot substantially impair our key natural resources like lands, water, and the atmosphere. And we are alleging that the Commonwealth is by permitting fossil fuel infrastructure. We really hope to win this lawsuit and hold the Commonwealth accountable for its actions of permitting fossil fuel infrastructure and violating our constitutional rights. And by winning this lawsuit, we could start to guarantee a more safe future for us and for our future generations. Our generation is really scared. We are paranoid, we are anxious, we are trying to maintain hope, but sometimes hopeless as well, because these issues are so present in our lives. We feel them every day, and it is deeply frustrating that there have been so many generations before us who had this science, who knew this science, who could prove this science, and they still passed it on and passed it on and passed it on. And with every passing year, our capacity to limit the impacts of climate change just gets smaller and smaller. And so many states, so many countries make all these promises for climate change. We're gonna do this by 2030. We're gonna do this by 2040, 2050. Well, I wanna tell them that in 2030, I'll be 27 years old. I'll just be beginning, I'll just be trying to get out into the world. So it really matters to me, the choices that they make right now. Many of our plaintiffs are under the age of 18 and can't vote and are deeply impacted by every legislative and judicial decision. And it's so scary that change hasn't come sooner. Climate change has had an impact on so many parts of my life, I can barely begin to count. But especially recently, I noticed it in my later high school years when I worked at a restaurant and when I worked as a camp counselor. I worked as a counselor at a nature outdoor summer camp. And I love this camp more than anything. I grew up at this camp. I've given so much to this camp, and all I wanted to do was bring these kids outdoors and show them Virginia's beautiful nature. And I wasn't able to for so many summers because it was so hot and there were so many heat waves that it was dangerous for us to take these kids outside. And it was just heartbreaking for me to see kids unable to experience Virginia's nature and unable to just go outside and run in the grass. And it's just another example of how climate change is here right now, and especially for younger kids who are 5, 6, and 7. They feel this, and they feel it in their bones as they're trying to play on the playground. I can't always put words to how I'm feeling, and music is always the answer, whether it's singing or playing guitar or playing piano. I feel like I have this avenue that lets me speak in a time when it can be really scary to have all these emotions and all of these fears.
Remember?
Can you tune it? I wrote my climate change song called Future of Humanity in 2018 when I was a sophomore in high school. And I had signed up to go to a climate strike in Richmond, and it was my first one at the Capitol building. And I was so excited, and I wanted to contribute to this movement, but there were so many speakers and so many experts who knew the science, and I wanted to make sure they had their chance to speak. So I thought to myself, where is my voice? Where is my contribution going to be? And because I love music so much, I chose to write a song about climate change. Repeat after me for the words real quick. We have to fight.
We have to fight.
To save our earth.
To save our earth.
So we can be, the future of humanity.
The future of humanity.
Thankfully, my family and friends have been very supportive since I became a youth plaintiff in Layla v. Commonwealth. And I feel so lucky to have them by my side and to have the community of plaintiffs as a support system.
We will not be silent! We will not be silent!
And I recognize that not every teen or child has that opportunity, and we need people, we need allies, we need adults, we need elders, we need other kids to join our fight, to join this movement, because we can't do it alone, and we need all these voices supporting us. There are a lot of steps to this lawsuit that are going to happen, especially after this case has been dismissed today, but I really hope and need it to be resolved as quickly as possible because we don't have time. We never had time, but right now it's 2022, and this problem is so real and so scary, so we don't have time to wait. We don't have time to jump through hoops and look for obstacles or deny the science, because the science is here and the future is here, and if we don't take action now, we will feel the consequences starting today, starting tomorrow, and for every decade to come.
The fight for government action against climate change is an ongoing battle, but these youth plaintiffs aren't the only ones who can make a difference. By electing candidates who are working to support and bring green initiatives to America, we can ensure that we all have access to a more habitable planet. Visit vote.org for voter registration and polling information. Make your mark by ensuring your voice is heard. The time is now.
The beaches of Miami will be gone by 2060. The canals of Venice, Italy will be lost beneath the sea.
How would we feel as a country if an airline, 50% of the times it took off, crashed? Would we allow that airline to exist? No, wouldn't. But we allow the criminal legal system to exist. More than 50% of the people that are released from their facilities crash within the first 3 years of their release. And when they crash, somebody else gets hurt.
The criminal legal system in the United States was created centuries ago to uphold justice and protect its citizens. But depending on your race, gender identity, or economic status, the law might not always be on your side. 23 years ago, John Adrian J.J. Velasquez was incarcerated for a crime he maintains he didn't commit. He was 22 years old when the state found him guilty with second-degree murder, having minimal evidence. While serving his sentence, JJ committed himself to learning the law, receiving a degree in behavioral science, and uplifting his fellow incarcerated individuals through several programs. In August 2021, JJ was granted executive clemency by then-Governor Andrew Cuomo and was released from prison the following month. Now, at 46 years old, JJ continues his efforts outside the prison system and hopes for a brighter future where cases like his won't happen again.
I'm an individual who happened to spend 23 years, 7 months, and 8 days incarcerated for a crime I did not commit. And since then, I have been advocating for what I consider real justice, as opposed to the fallacy that, society is trained in on and thinking is a fair system. I was young, I was naive, lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, lack of resources, and I lost a huge portion of my life. In fact, I spent more time in prison than I did in society as it stands today. The world needs to recognize that punishment alone is not enough to rehabilitate an individual. In fact, the prefix on the word itself is rehabilitate, when a lot of these individuals came to prison at young ages and were never habilitated in the first place. So how do you redo something that you never learned how to do in the first place? And so that's a big problem here. It's important that when individuals get incarcerated, that they continue to be exposed and connected to the humanity that exists in the world, so that they don't lose touch and focus with that, because what's happening is individuals are coming out worse than they went in. I grew up and spent my entire adulthood incarcerated in prison. I left society when I was 22 years old. I came home as a 46-year-old man. However, the sad reality was, despite all the work I did, all the self-development, all the research, all the studies, when I came home, no amount of preparation could have put me in a space where I would feel comfortable upon my release. I was a 45-year-old turning 46, trapped in the social capacity of a 22-year-old because I had missed out on so much of life. Inside prison, I was fortunate enough to find people who believed in me. And that came in the form of organizations that sent volunteers inside of Sing Sing. And so since I've been home, I went back to those same organizations that I was working with inside, one of them being Hudson Link for Higher Education in Prison. I had gotten 2 degrees from them. I was involved in their program from 2008 to 2014. When I graduated, I decided to pay it forward, and I became a program assistant and started running the program inside, helping other people get the same type of love and care that I was receiving. I'm not an anomaly. I'm not the only person, and Manhattan is not the only place where wrongful convictions happen. I was fortunate enough to be able to capture the governor's attention and be released, but the sad reality of that was that nothing had changed in the last 5 years that I waited for clemency. I was doing the work that I was doing inside long before that. I was creating positive programs. I already had 2 degrees. I was helping people inside. I was, doing everything possible to try to change my atmosphere, because my atmosphere was filled with tension, filled with violence. And I wanted to change that. So I worked with other guys that were incarcerated with like minds, and we started to create safe spaces for change inside. If we really want to invest in public safety, we need to treat these individuals while they're in there. We need to switch the focus from punitive to treatment and training. Train them to be better people, train them to have skills so that they can take advantage of opportunities. But at the same token, the opportunities have to exist. And the majority of people that are incarcerated because the opportunities didn't exist.
Yeah, all 20. Yo, look at Big Swole. Oh, yo, what's up, man? What's up, Big Swole? What up? What's going on, man?
What's happening, man?
Talk about me.
Is this a sound from the universe, baby?
Talk about
I've been used since I leave his stomach alone, man. I see what you was trying to do. That's why I grabbed your hand. I don't have no touch. I'm enjoying life. I don't really care.
So as the program director for the Frederick Douglass Project for Justice, I bring groups of individuals from the community, from 10 to 15, inside of correctional facilities in multiple states. When we bring these people in there, we're heightening the awareness. And a lot of times they come off, there's like this magic that takes place, and they come out of there inspired to help.
Education is power. It's open doors for you. Like, see, now if I had this knowledge or this education when I was in the street.
Education is the opportunity. That's what put a lot of us on the map. If we can change these correctional institutions into campuses where education is available again. There are so many ways that individuals can help. The truth of the matter is, just by engaging with somebody inside and maybe forming a relationship and showing them that you believe in them can be the biggest change that anybody can offer. The one thing we have to realize is that we do have power as people. We have power through our voices. We have power through the ability to write. The written word is very powerful. And we have power to vote. Former Governor Cuomo had restored the voting rights of individuals who are released from prison in New York. And so now it's important for us to gather together and organize and mobilize and say, listen, we have a voting block and you need to listen to us. It's time to educate. The bottom line is this: a lot of our people don't vote because they don't trust the system, right? But we need to understand that we can influence the system. We don't have to trust them. We have to hold them accountable.
Absolutely.
And we can't hold them accountable if we ain't doing our part. And that's what it comes down to. I am hopeful somewhat because I see the tide starting to turn. Changes are happening. They're happening a little bit too slow. I hope they happen in my lifetime. I don't know if they will, but I know I will be a voice involved in making that change possible. Why do we wait till it's too late? Why do we march all these miles for people like George Floyd after they die? We have to start being on the front end of the movement. We have to start preventing crime.
The fight for an equitable criminal legal system is an ongoing battle, but formerly incarcerated activists like JJ aren't the only ones who can make a difference. By electing and supporting candidates who are working to support and bring new policies and adjustments at the local, state, and federal level, we can ensure that everyone in the United States has access to a just legal system. Visit vote.org for voter registration and polling information. Make your mark by ensuring your voice is heard. The time is now.
I consider my current economic status to be working poor. You can't work hard enough to get out of this. It's not a thing that happens because you individually want it. Because a lot of people want it. And a lot of people work really, really hard. In all honesty, a lot of people that I know, that I talk to on a regular basis, think that I am insane for how much that I work. And it still doesn't cut it at the end of the day. There's just not enough.
The The COVID-19 pandemic, an uneasy job market, rising inflation, and stagnant wages have all contributed to an increasing feeling of economic instability for individuals and families across America. Michael Israel Mosley is a single father and advocate in Waterville, Maine. He's been hit hard by many of the economic headwinds in recent years. While Mosley has received federal and state assistance in recent years through stimulus checks, child tax credits, and soon student loan forgiveness, he is still working as much as he can to keep his head above water to continue providing for himself and his 2 sons.
As a consultant, right now I make a little over $1,900 a month, but my bills come out to about $1,850. I've had to make do however I can, and you can find like side gigs here and there. I've definitely been saved more than once by an unexpected $250 for being somewhere. Inflation has hammered my food bill. I've got 2 growing boys. I am an active adult male.
Well, I wanted to sit up here. Swear to God, if you asked me to put another thing in the fridge.
We go through a lot of food on a regular basis, and we try to eat healthy, but that's much harder now. I think that my food bill has gone up at least $60 over the course of the last year. I'm raising 2 kids who need my attention. I really want to be an attentive father. I want to be there for them and to do these things with them and to teach them things. White pepper, not the same as black pepper. But it breaks my heart some days that I have to tell them I can't right now. When it comes to my youngest, I've had to tell him recently, if I'm working and we can't hang out right now, it's not because I don't want to. It's because I'm doing the work that I need to do for us to be together and to stay together, and so that I can take care of you. I consider myself lucky because he understands that, but I know that he doesn't always get it, and that doesn't change how it makes you feel. In 2021, I qualified for the child tax credit, so we made about $600 a month through that. When it went away in the dead of winter, and in Maine we pay heating oil prices. And I don't know if anybody's noticed, but heating oil got expensive. We got hit with the tax penalty because it didn't get extended, and we had taken that $600 a month. And I think the hardest part of all of that is that we relied on our tax returns every year to be able to catch up on bills. You're expecting to have some sort of fallback money, and we lost that because of the tax credit going away the way that it did. It really was like going 1 step forward and 2 steps back, but that 1 step forward really isn't guaranteed. Sometimes you get about halfway through that step and then you trip and you fall on your face. When it comes to childcare and having a truly universal childcare system, we could put so many people back to work in this state. People who have been wanting to work for years, and people who have been losing work for the last couple of years because we just don't have that system in place to take care of them or their children or their families or their communities. In a lot of ways, I'm incredibly lucky because I have friends and family that I can lean on when it comes to childcare. But in our state, minimum wage is about $22,000, right around what I make, and childcare costs you $11,000. In our state, we have a saying that everyone knows, and it's that you need childcare to get a job, but you need a job to get childcare. It's a vicious cycle that a lot of people don't escape in this state. I think one of the most disappointing things that I witnessed over the last 2 years is Build Back Better not going through, especially the child care money. The way that I looked at it is if you capped all of your expenses at 7% and you gave people the tax credit indefinitely, then that's free child care. That's a free $11,000 bill off of people's shoulders. The people who are doing that work deserve to be invested in. They deserve to make good money. They deserve to be valued because their work is important and we all rely on it. When it comes to student loan forgiveness, from what I've seen, based on income, I should be eligible for $20,000 of student loan forgiveness. I would qualify for $10,000 in student loan forgiveness through Pell Grants and $10,000 in student loan forgiveness through my federal student loans. That still leaves me about $10,000 or so in student loan debt that I'd have to pay off. And even under a payment plan, I'd still have to pay about $80 to $100 a month, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you only have about $70 of wiggle room every month, it's important. When it comes to helping people and to really care for the people of our state, universal basic income is probably the easiest way to go about it. We have such a massive tax on ourselves and the time that it takes to get these things and how you're treated when you go. You start to have to make really questionable decisions that no person should have to make. Do I go and I work more, but I lose $300 or $400 in food? Do I go and I work more or I lose health care? Those aren't decisions that people should have put on them at all. And to just cut out the extra nonsense that keeps people from being able to make that decision is probably one of the most empowering things we could do for our own people. We should already have those options, and people should already be able to make those options, because we have the largest rainy day fund that we have ever had in this state, and from where I sit, it's been raining for a while. What I hope that my children take away from the example that I set is twofold. I hope that they realize that they don't have to give up, or to settle, or to believe that they aren't good enough and can't make it work. But I also hope that in them seeing how hard I work for other people, even in spite of our own situation, and you can still help other people, no matter what your situation is.
Mosley is one of millions of Americans whose economic instability requires him to make tough choices every day. And while our nation's current economic situation is immensely complex and provides no easy solutions, we have the power to elect lawmakers at the state and federal level who can put forth policies that benefit working class folks the most. Visit vote.org for voter registration and polling information. Make your mark by ensuring your voice is heard. The time is now.
Death isn't something you prepare for unless it's something you know is going to happen. You never know a school shooting's going to happen until it happens. That's not something you prepare for. Grief is hard. Obviously, grief is hard. But grief is especially hard when you don't have time to say goodbye.
On May 24, 2022, 19 children and 2 adults were killed in a mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. It is the deadliest school shooting since the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in 2012. In the United States, children live in fear of losing their lives to gun violence. But citizens seem to be at odds as calls for gun reform compete with those who seek to protect their Second Amendment right to bear arms. Jasmine Cazares' 9-year-old sister Jackie and her 10-year-old cousin Annabelle Rodriguez were both killed during the Robb Elementary School shooting. As she works to complete her senior year of high school, Jasmine has become outspoken about reforming gun laws.
I didn't really plan on activism, and most people don't, especially after something like this. But I went to a March for Our Lives event the day after what would have been my sister's 10th birthday. And I was hesitant at first, but I was like, better now than never. So that's kind of when it started. But I think we need a lot more young people for their voices to be heard, especially in these days when it's young people, people of color that are being targeted in our society. We're a small town, so it's the type of town where everybody knows everybody in some way. But recently, because of the tragedy, we've been really divided. A lot of people don't agree with what we're doing, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and that's completely okay, and I understand that. But some people are unnecessarily rude, and that's sad to see in your hometown, especially. Just recently, one of the dads of the victims, Brett Cross, he was protesting with a peaceful protest outside of central office. And our whole goal of that was to get the UCISD police suspended while the investigation is going on, and that did happen. But most people didn't agree with what we were doing because they thought we were targeting the superintendent, and that wasn't our intention, while it might have looked like that. And as a result of that, maybe it wasn't a direct result of that, but he did choose to retire, and a lot of people blame us for that. Also, of course, we're fighting for gun control, and a lot of people don't agree with that, especially in Texas, especially in a conservative town like ours. A lot of people don't agree with that. I fully support an assault weapons ban. I think here in Texas, at least, we need to be realistic. So we're fighting for raising the age to 21, but I think we need better background checks. And I think gun owners, Republicans, Independents, Democrats, I think we just have to agree that we don't want any more people to die, and things like this is a really easy fix. Jackie was the type of kid that wanted to be grown. You know those type of kids that they just want to be adults so fast, and I think it's just really sad that she just wanted to be grown and never got to get there. She loved animals, she wanted to be a veterinarian, she wanted to go to Paris for her graduation. She loved Starbucks. I don't know what kind of 9-year-old drinks coffee, but she loved Starbucks. I would say she's like the definition of a little sister. She was a brat, but at the end of the day, we loved each other, so it didn't really matter if we fought or not. One that I talk about a lot is the day before, actually. We're always together, but I think it was just a moment to cherish because we were all outside. It was me, the neighbors in front of us, my cousin lives next door, so we were all outside, and we had my nephew with us at the time. We're all playing, they were throwing around the baseball. That was kind of it. I mean, we're always together, but we're not outside as often. I think that's one of the moments that I cherish the most, simply because it was one of the last ones, and the morning before, I don't really remember anything. I didn't have any run-ins with her, so it was kind of one of the last moments. I think that's why I cherish it so much. I was always raised to respect other people's beliefs, and I do. I believe people are entitled to their opinion, but sometimes it's baffling. It's baffling that people don't support minimum things like raising the age. I think that's so minimum, especially seeing things on social media, seeing all these shootings. I don't know how people don't want to fight for something like this, but that's the world we live in. I've been doing lockdown drills since I was 7. It's been 10 years that I've been scared for my life in school. 10 years. Even as a child, I knew the potential dangers of going to school, and in a society like this, that's disgusting. That's disgusting. And voting for people that are going to make sure kids don't have to be scared at schools anymore is absolutely vital this election.
It's devastating that incidents of mass shooting and other forms of gun violence have become the norm in the U.S. But it doesn't have to be this way. People like Jasmine who have been impacted by gun violence aren't the only ones who can make a difference. By supporting elected officials who are working to affect change at the local, state, and federal levels, we can help move the needle towards a safer tomorrow. Visit vote.org for voter registration and polling information. Make your mark by ensuring your voice is heard. The time is now.